a professor at Islamabad's Quaid-e-Azam University and a longtime water rights activist. He emphasized the breaches in one particular barrage on the Indus in the province of Punjab. It's called Taunsa Barrage and was renovated under a World Bank-funded project that was completed just 6 months ago.
There was no doubt that the size of the flood was very massive. But the destruction that was brought, it was brought due to the breaches in the dikes and breaches in embankments. And certainly there were many man-made causes involved in worsening the situation. The main cause of the flood, worsening of the flood, was Taunsa Barrage. It was in the downstream of Taunsa Barrage, and the reason was that the Taunsa Barrage is the most silted up river, and its capacity, storage capacity, has been reduced. So it is not possible to hold up the water, and embankments are in very bad shape. When the World Bank started its rehabilitation project of Taunsa Barrage 3 years ago, it was meant to basically to rehabilitate and repair the whole barrage, and $140 million were allocated. We asked them to pay attention to ecological issues, and especially the issue of the silt deposition, sedimentation of the barrage, and how the whole ecology of the barrage is going to change because its channel has been raised up, and now all the low-lying areas are more in the danger of flood. So all that have been ignored. So after the rehabilitation project, after 6 months, the barrage failed to hold up the water, and it was breached. So it was, in fact, it was this failure of Taunsa Barrage that caused such large destruction. It was the failure of the one structure of Taunsa Barrage, that was embankment. So it is not only these are not only natural floods, but also the structures that were created by engineers and badly looked after by irrigation departments that have caused such destruction and worsened the situation.
Mushtaq Abdi from Quaid-e-Azam University in Pakistan, talking about the breaches to one of the small dams or barrages on the Indus River. One of the many areas badly affected by the floods is Baluchistan. On Sunday, Democracy Now!'s Anjali Kamat reached Qalandar Memon with the Labour Party of Pakistan about relief efforts in this historically ignored region.
The Balochistan is historically neglected by the state. It hasn't supported the education network. Balochis are far more unemployed. They're underrepresented in all state institutions in terms of military bureaucracy. And as you probably already know, there is an insurgency going on for separation and for other demands, autonomy. And in light of that, the flooding has not really, the government has done very little to support the people who've been flooded. The government, in terms of what they did, is that they turned up with a very minor number of food, and there, over 40,000 people in the first 3 days were affected, and then it's increased. And they turned up with something like 5,000 food parcels, and of course that's going to cause more trouble and rioting because it was just dumped, and they left, leaving people to sort out how to distribute it themselves. I've also heard stories of mass corruption among the officials, and that people with connections and people who are able to pay the government are able to get relief, and others are suffering. So the flooding swept villages. People did not expect it. And they had to run for their lives to higher ground. And there they had to sleep in the open, without shelter, clean drinking water. And their food supplies, of course, finished because they rely on stocked livestock, and that's being swept away in most cases. So they're without food, without clean drinking water, and they have very little shelter. Now, as time has gone by, more and more people are moving, if possible, because the roads are blocked and it's very difficult and people are still scared. But if possible, when they get a chance, they're trying to move to bigger cities such as Quetta. But a lot of people, I think, The last I heard, there are at least 50,000 people sleeping in open still in Balochistan. Everyone here has been complaining the government actually does not have the capacity to respond because when there isn't a disaster, they do nothing in terms of capacity building. So this was a critique that people articulated after the earthquake, and I don't think we've gone much further than that.
Kalander Memon from the Labour Party of Pakistan. We're still on the line with Fatima Bhutto, the Pakistani poet, the niece of the assassinated former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. Fatima, I wanted to ask you about the growing strength of the Taliban. And, well, the Washington Post is reporting the U.S. military has sent 6 helicopters, 91 troops, hundreds of thousands of meals from neighboring Afghanistan to help with relief efforts in Swat. The presence of U.S. troops on the ground in Pakistan has the potential to kick up controversy given the deep mistrust of American motivation. And it goes on to say Islamic charities, including ones that are known fronts for banned militant groups, have begun distributing assistance in some areas, as have Western governmental organizations. But for the most part, residents said they're receiving no aid at all. So talk about what this means for the military and for the rise of the Taliban in Pakistan.
Well, certainly the last statement is correct, and we know this again to be true from the 2005 earthquake. The state is absolutely unwilling or incompetent when it comes to providing even the most basic of services to their people during peacetime, during times of no natural disasters. Secondly, while there is aid coming from the American military, we also have to remember that American Predator drones fly over Pakistan on what feels like weekly missions, what are weekly missions, in attacks that have killed more than 200 unnamed Pakistanis this year alone. So with one hand, America cannot expect to give aid and find people, grateful recipients of that aid, and the other, bomb people overhead, people who have not been indicted, people who have been, uncharged with anything. And certainly what we know to be true, again, from the 2005 earthquake is the fact that when there is a total absence of the state, a vacuum is created. We know not just in the northern parts of Pakistan that were badly hit by the 2005 earthquakes, but many other parts of the country are without access to justice. They're without any law and order institutions set up. They have no access to hospitals or to schools. And that vacuum is very ably filled by militant groups who come in, who provide madrasa education, which may be a child's only chance to learn how to read and write. They provide quick and speedy access to what they believe is justice. And indeed, their popularity grows as a result. And we're seeing that now with the floods. We are still seeing that. We are seeing in parts of the flood-affected areas, the BBC is reporting that survivors have physically attacked government officials and members of the ruling party who have been absolutely inept when it comes to caring for their constituents and to providing any form of aid.
Is global warming tied to the floods, Fatima?
Well, I would certainly think so. I think there's any number of issues that are tied to these floods. I mean, the global warming, the poor construction of these very large, ineffectual dams, and the fact that Pakistan, even though we have monsoon season every year, it comes at the same time every year, the state has not strengthened any institutions that could have and should have contained the rains.
Fatima Bhutto, I want to thank you for being with us. Pakistani poet, niece of the assassinated former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. Her memoir, Songs of Blood and Sword, will be published in the United States this fall. This is Democracy Now! When we come back, we're going to talk about Rwanda. Stay with us.
I stay awake all night. I can't